Hi, Travis. Thank you for being here in the Pycon Colombia 2023. It's a really pleasure to have you here, to pick you up in the airport. It was a really awesome experience for me, and to meet you and see you working and talking with the other part of the keynotes and also the community. Thank you so much for being here and be part of our conference. So I would like to ask you for our interview, like we are starting and we are going to meet a little bit more about Travis. And so we are going to deep into what you like, what you do, and like your perspective on many different points of questions that I would like to ask you. So we know that you have a background as electronics engineer, computer engineer also, and then you start like growing and creating things, innovating things, and founding companies, and like right now you have a really big impact, and you are a part of the Python community, and you are like changing the life of many people. So I would like to ask you how you embark, how you start in that journey, and what experience like shape what you are right now.
Yeah, that's a long conversation, and I would probably take the whole interview, but I can maybe give some highlights, perhaps. I've been doing this for a little while. I would say I got started with curiosity. Right? I've learned about computers early on in my life. And so I was always computer curious, but I was science curious too. So I went and did engineering, electrical engineering, mainly because I like science and physics, particularly electromagnetics. I like waves and Maxwell's equations, and there's a really cool relationship between Maxwell's equations and special relativity that I loved. And so, but I wanted to support a family, so I became an engineer. That was the idea. Anyway, electrical engineering was what I studied. I just found I really loved the applied math part, signal processing, computers, using computers to solve big problems. So I went to get a PhD in medicine, medical imaging, basically, instead of kind of what I was related to what I was doing before. That experience, I just learned a whole new set of how to get information from data, and then encountered Python along the way. And it was early in the days of Linux was just starting to be available from Red Hat, and I became a Linux user, and I saw these, I could Google and find new libraries. And at the time, I had to install them. Installation was not trivial. It was usually get a big tarball, they called it, and then I would unpack it and then compile it sometimes. And
oh my God.
And I was in the middle of kind of my PhD studying basically medical imaging, and I really, really wanted to figure out a different way to do it than MATLAB. And so I found Python. And Python led me to solve my problem, but also and then encountered this just amazing community and this set of people that were then there. Even in 1997, 98, that's when I started to play with Python. There were people there, Guido and Conrad Hinson, Paul Dubois, and David Asher. There's a number of people there who just became and I just really fell in love with the participation in the community. So it was curiosity and science that brought me to Python.
Awesome, and it's a really good mix, plus community, plus the right people, the right moment, so nice. Thank you. So talking about the community, so I would like to, as many of our viewers may know that you already create so many libraries that are saving our life daily by day, like NumPy or SciPy. And I would like to know which if there is a favorite one or most meaningful library or development that you did.
You asked me to pick my favorite child.
Yeah.
It's a little hard because I have 6 children actually, and I've had children from the time I was working in open source. I've had kids, and it's not exactly the same, but there is some similarities. You have to let go a little bit.
You have that love for what you create.
You really push. You put a lot of effort in early, and then you have to let it go and let it mature and go on its own. Probably, SciPy was my baby. I was really excited about to start with. But NumPy probably has been the most. It stretched me at the time. It was writing.
It was a challenge.
It was a challenge. In fact, there were things in it that I wish I would have known better now. I wish current me could go back and mentor past me to fix some things. That it was really pushing my edge. I was not a computer scientist. I was a self-taught computer programmer who was a scientist. But I had the use case, and so scratching my itch. And then rallying the community. It was really quite a lonely time for a bit, because I was basically taking on this big project to unify the array objects, and a lot of people were skeptical. And I probably would have been too.
As usual, with the magic things that change the world,
It's
everyone is skeptical.
Skeptical. Not sure you can pull that off. But I knew I could if I had the time. And it took about 6 months, then another maybe 8 months to get the right people deciding. And I remember when John Hunter actually, it was a year later, he basically made NumPy a dependency of Matplotlib. That was the key, actually. When that happened, then Matplotlib was a primary library in the space at the time. Then I kind of knew that we'd done it. We'd made it work. And by then, there was about 6 people who had joined me in the effort. But for the first 6 months, it was alone. It was lonely, and it was writing some hard things that I needed some more help, basically.
Yeah, it's
but it was cool. That probably, but it was hard to do because it was not the right thing to do for my career. I had my boss basically telling me, don't do as much with open source, like because you need to get your job. I was a professor at the time, and my boss, he was my department chair, I was up for tenure, and I had to, wanted me to publish more and do more research. And so kind of stay away from this open source, not stay away, but invest a little bit less in this open source stuff. And so I go right NumPy.
Decrease the time that you're in.
Decrease the time. And so, but the story is impactful in the sense that I knew it was the right thing to do, even though it didn't seem like the commercially right thing to do. It was the right thing to do for the world. Right? There were people out there, and I knew I could do it, and I didn't know who else would if I didn't. And so it was a problem that needed to be solved, and I didn't know who could do it, and there was nobody to do it. And there were other people that could be professors of electrical and computer engineering.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Anyway, I chose
decision?
Instead of choosing something that I knew would work, I didn't know what it would mean for my career. Open source does not necessarily lead to monetary success, right? It definitely, if you do the right thing, you'll help people and you'll improve the planet. But that's what I'm about now, is trying to figure out how to help make open source success lead to business success.
Yeah.
Right? To make that a more natural connection and finding ways to do that. That's basically what I spend my time doing now.
Awesome. Well, can you tell me a little bit more about that, like that connection? What are you imagining?
It varies. I think it's not just one thing, so it's many things. So I do this with a venture fund. We fund entrepreneurs who are trying to create companies. I find architects who want to then do consulting and help them kind of take some of the pain points from consulting, like going and finding new clients and building businesses. So kind of doing some of the things I had to learn and kind of providing that to other folks. And then this incubation model, like open source, can always incubate ideas. And those ideas can lead to really powerful products, really powerful solutions. But there's one thing I've definitely learned is that there's a difference between open source participation and product creation, right? Products that use open source and solve a pain point for somebody, there's actually a combinatorial explosions of possibilities. So I think that's one of the big things that people should be aware of, is everywhere you can and you can do both in your lifetime, right? Just different times, different places. Work with open source and help a community grow, or build a product that uses it. And then what I want to do is help those people creating products to support the open source they depend on. And we've got specific ways
to create a cycle.
Make it a cycle, make it a continuous loop. Because right now that's not happening enough. And there's some numerous ways to do that, either by, I've got a big idea actually called Pharaoh SS I'm working on. And if anybody's interested in that, come talk to me, because I'd really love to talk to you about that, but it takes more effort than we have now. But things like that. So I'm, Open Teams, Quantsite Labs, Pharaoh SS, and Anaconda. When we started Anaconda, its purpose was to build a product that could then support open source. So, and right now you have Anaconda has a dividend. It has a dividend payment it'll make to NumFocus based on commercial participants in Anaconda. So basically the community benefits directly from participation with Anaconda's success. So those are the kind of things I work on now.
Awesome. And before we pass to another topic, I would like to ask you if you miss the academy.
How is that
life
leaving the academy?
Professor?
So I don't miss the bureaucracy. I don't miss
Definitely, I'm with you.
I think aligned universities is a deeper topic and something we could talk about. I love the students. I love the teaching. The research was also interesting. I think there's definitely a place for, what I would say is, in industry, research happens, but it's basically on the order of 6 months to 3 years. Maybe 5 if you're a big company and can afford it, but kind of the 5 to 15 to 20 year research horizons. those what universities can do and industry doesn't. So those kind of long horizon, big idea problems that just need to be worked on in a fundamental way. Yeah, I miss that sometimes.
I think you miss the people, you miss the students.
I miss the students. I really loved the training. I wasn't a great teacher, I would say. I was learning to become a better teacher. But at the time, it was something I had to spend more time on. And in the United States, I don't know what it's like in Colombia, maybe similar. You take people who are good at research or who are good at being at students, and you move them to be a professor. And it's like, well, you have to learn some things about pedagogy, about teaching, and that isn't usually supported or rewarded. Like, it was always the number 3 thing on, people wanted you to be a good teacher, but you get fired for not doing research, but you wouldn't get fired for being a bad teacher. If you were great at research and a bad teacher, they wouldn't fire you.
Yeah, and
But the reverse, definitely true. You could be a great teacher, but bad at research, they would fire you.
That's true. And I remember a lot of my teachers that are really good research, but when I start like getting close to them and like, hey, let's do a research together, I learned that definitely what they love is to research and not to teaching. Yeah. And I was like, I really want to learn. Maybe with the research it could be easily, but it's like the academy keep those 2 things separated. And that is not
It doesn't have to be separated. I mean, you can do them both together well.
Yeah.
Right, but you do have to be intentional and learn some things. But I appreciate what I was learning. I was a professor for about 7 years, 7 years.
It's a long period.
Which, so I really, really enjoyed. I had 1 PhD student that graduated under me, and about 4 master's degree students, and then a lot of undergraduates, hundreds of undergraduates who I had a chance to teach. It's been fun to watch some of those folks, like there's somebody at NVIDIA at a higher level. There's a few of these people, some become doctors. It is fun to see the impact you have on education. But yeah, I've always been trying to make open source work with my career, and academia, it didn't work as well as I'd hoped it would. I think it works better now. I was expecting it to be a little more, fluid and now it is easier. There's been a lot of strides in making open source publications or making.
And researching is changing. It's
like
a really
research
good
has been changing.
Phenomenon there that I'm keeping an eye on that. Like it's weird. Like
I was one of the people that was. So I didn't get tenure. Right. They didn't say no, but they said come back. And at that point, I didn't want to just do the whole application again in 2 years. And because they didn't know the impact that NumPy would have, they didn't understand really the story. And I can understand that to a degree, but anyway, I do miss it. But I'm really glad I'm in industry.
Yeah.
I think
I'm glad too.
I really like aligned. Like I'm a different kind of industry person. I interact with VCs. I interact with people that do funding. And I respect a lot of what happens, but growing up in the open source ecosystem, growing up as an academic, I definitely have a different perspective. Like to me, business is an extension of that. Like I'm very much believe in the power of business to serve people. Like I'm motivated to serve people, and business should serve people too. Now sometimes businesses fall into little c corruption, I call it, where the incentives stop being aligned, and you're basically instead of people buying from you because they like your service, there's they're like forced to buy from you. And that when that happens, that creates a problem. And so, keeping business so where it's a win-win situation, because finding win-win scenarios is beautiful. It's awesome. Where you can actually, hey, we're trading and you're benefiting and I'm benefiting. That's what I love about it. And to me, it's an extension of the open source participation where it's just different. Here it's time and interaction with each other, and here there's money does get involved. But anyway, to me, it's an extension of it, and I would love to see more open source aligned business, is what I call it.
Yeah, and we will see it definitely.
We are seeing more and more, and I'm happy to be helping and being a part of some of that and watch it and participate in it as it grows.
Awesome, and let's jump to the other side of the coin. Mm-hmm. So, Travis, what is your hobbies? What would you like to do when he's not talking about technology or
So I talk about technology and business a lot. You can ask my family. They're kind of like, well, his hobby is making companies. But to be fair, I love to sing. I met my wife singing. And so we went on a cruise, an Italian cruise last year. and there was a voice competition called the Voice of the Sea.
And you win?
Well, so my wife won, and I took second place.
Awesome.
So, but we love singing. I play the piano. I really like to do math problems, which is kind of weird.
But it's awesome. And the maths is there.
I love just kind of doing math puzzles and problems, and then spending time with my family. Just I hang out with my kids a lot.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So good to know that size of that, that thing,
that part,
that part of you. Yeah, definitely.
I do like some. I found that the streaming servers are getting better at certain video. There's a certain I like to watch good TV shows, right? Like that are science fiction usually.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, many of us here love science fiction.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I have other two questions that I would like to jump
Sure.
that are more about like current situations. One is about the layoff. What is your perspective and your thoughts of what is happening in the industry that is not only on the open source side, it's like the whole software industry is facing a crisis that is making like the big companies and others to make big layoffs.
Yeah.
And, well, we are kind of afraid, like as a developers, PMs, whatever.
Well, I would say, at this point, I've seen a lot of cycles. I know. Over my career, I've seen several ups and downs and cycles.
And this one
I would say
looks like a
it's
cycle?
important not to be, chasing the trends, right? If you chase trends, it's very likely you're going to find yourself outside of what's important, right? If you chase capability, knowing the program is never going to go out of style. Now, if you just learn, hey, I can, sling together some React code, or hey, I can sling together some Django code, yeah, you'll be replaceable, right? I mean, but if you learn, this is how the Python ecosystem, this is how Python works, this is how, deep learning works. Like, I really advocate learning how things work and then building a network with people. So there's, becoming very expert at how things work and then connecting deeply with people. Like, those things will keep you relevant regardless
of advice.
Right, regardless of what happens. So, I think I think the tech economy is actually connected to the overall economic conditions and challenges, which, I think that's a deeper conversation and we don't have time for. Tech companies kind of overinvested. I think salaries went up pretty high, pretty quick, kind of farther than they really could be sustained. Mm-hmm. And in tech, we see this. There's sort of sustainable levels, and then there's people come in trying to make money later, so they put a lot of money in first, and their goal is to make a lot of money later. And one of the challenges is the version 2 web, where big companies wanted to get monopolies, or they ended up with monopolies around the internet is supposed to be decentralized with lots of potential to enable everybody. That's the part of open source I love. But then, there were a few gatekeeper kind of websites that ended up making a lot of money, and that sort of oriented investors to want to repeat that. And so you'll see them kind of put a bunch of money in and then build up, but then that's all not going to work. So I much prefer looking for sustainable win-win. Doing this actually helps. It will make us better off. And so just, I think, awareness of, you can make money while the sun, make hay while the sun shines, as they say. You can do that, but be aware if that's what you're doing, because the sun will go down and you have to, pivot and do something else. But if again, deep awareness of how things work and good connections with people, you'll be fine.
You will be fine. Thank you. Thank you. And I hope everyone here take those advices and do something about it. And lastly, as you may know, there is so many tools and things about the artificial intelligence.
Oh, yes.
I want to know your impressions, your thoughts about the public concerns and the potential risks about them. And what do you think about it?
So I'm generally optimistic, but I'm generally optimistic about everything. So I can understand some of the concerns that people are having. I'm a big fan of array computing, tensor computing. To me, our AI and LLMs in particular, and generative AI in particular, is kind of illustrating something I was talking about 11 years ago, which basically, if we focus on tensor computing, we'll make faster progress. And that's kind of what's been happening to produce these LLMs. Now, it shows a lot of potential, but I think part of that is if we do what I said, build communities, build technology, AI is just a tool. And it's the relationship with each other. I mean, the only concern I have is the same concern that the big social media companies have been kind of creating distance between us a little bit. And if we use it instead to strengthen our relationship with each other and build better communities, then AI is just a better tool to help us live better and produce better. So I want to democratize access. I want to have lots of people have access to the tooling. Anytime I see a single organization being the gatekeeper or the owner, unless that organization is just facilitating the distribution of them. You can have good organizations that are large, but they're not sort of gatekeeping. They're distributing. So that's what I like to see. I'm a big fan of distributed knowledge, a big fan of lets a lot of people out there learn. Mm-hmm. I think we have a lot of questions to answer, a lot of questions to ask. I'm hopeful AI can be helpful to us and that it doesn't, but the main problem is still people, right? It's basically, bad ideas, bad thinking about how to connect with each other. And that's been with us for 10,000 years. So yes, we'll have some bad ideas emerge that may create difficult situations that AI amplifies in this conversation, but I think AI can also amplify the
good things,
the production of good ideas and the production of better ways of cooperating. That's where I sit. I'm excited by it. I think it's interesting. I think we have a long way to go. Yes, we have some interesting demos.
This is just a start.
But this is just a start.
Yeah.
For programming, for example, it's not going to replace, it might replace bad programmers, right? Because you can do bad programming with ChatGPT now, right? You can just have it spit code to you. But it won't replace the art of software creation, right? If you were doing it badly before, I think maybe what will happen is it'll increase the skill because this is, we can just do this. Okay, do that, and it doesn't work. But then it'll amplify what it means to be a programmer. Generally I'm excited, but hopeful and hope that we use it as a chance to connect with each other better.
Let's cross the fingers.
Cross our fingers. Well, and not just cross our fingers, let's act in that direction.
Yeah, do something.
Let's do something that supports that way of thinking and supports that approach.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Travis. I really enjoyed talking with you. I'm so more honored to be with you, sitting here with you.
It's my pleasure, really.
Thank you so much. And
Carl, thank you so much for your work.
I hope you come back here to Colombia to spend more time with us.
I really love it here. I've been to Bogota this is the second time, and I love it here. The people are so generous, so good. The food is awesome. The weather is great. I just really like it, and I hope to see more of the country. We've done one of our companies we've invested in actually does work in the southern part of Colombia with the rainforest. So always looking to kind of support and help and then meet people and connect with people. We actually have 5 people working with us who from Colombia. Love to continue to grow the connection.
Definitely will be. Thank you so much, Travis.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.